Alright guys, Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. What I've got for you today is an analysis to The Warning. I've been told to listen to these guys for absolute ages, and their new song Burnout. If you yourself a request or something you want me to check out, make sure to hit up patreon.com/JBF Music. On that note, I want to give a shout out and a huge thank you to Rabbi Raps, Glenn Kelly, Stephen Williams, Rebecca Hay, Falcon Sooner and Dale Scholes for their support. Thank you so much guys. Alright, what I've got up here is the studio version, just so things are a bit clearer, a bit more crisp, and I like to look at live and studio versions because it gives you a kind of better idea of the band, because you can put a lot of sheen on in a studio and present things in a different way, and live it kind of feels a bit different. It makes sense as I go into this, what I mean by that. Right, okay, so here, the first thing I'm kind of hearing is that there's, I need to turn it up a bit. Yeah, so I'd mentioned the band Muse I was hearing as an influence, and here I hear that more with the distorted bass, something like, I can't remember the song. The Muse song that does that in the same key here, both in E, so you get the nice funk. A much more rounded tone than the basses from Muse. There's a bit of a kind of a bit more treble on it. This is a kind of nice smooth fuzzy tone. And obviously their singing voice is nothing like Matt Bellamy. Muse are a good example of a three-piece in this dynamic thing. So when I'm talking about dynamics, it's a lot of it is loud, quiet. So that was what the Pixies reference was. Loud chorus, quiet verse. So here, it's not exactly the quietest of verses because there's distortion on the bass, there's the drums going on, there's the vocals as well. But it's still leaving plenty of space for them to expand and also kind of make things quieter if they want to. That was quite a Musey thing to do. I'm going to pop that back. If you listen to her vocals, there's a very distinct distortion on it over Other Way. So hopefully you heard it over Other Way there. I believe what Muse do live is have two different microphones and you can sing into one that kind of distorts the voice like this. It's just a really cool texture to have at your disposal. A tiny bit of maybe the Royal Blood or something like that as well, with a kind of thick bass tone. Something really interesting has happened here. I think live they doubled it up with the guitar and the bass. What I think they've done in the studio here, they might have done this live and I didn't pick up on it. I think the bass is being doubled an octave higher, or she started playing it an octave higher and doubled it an octave lower because it sounds really kind of beefy and thick. You get the same effect when you have the bass playing a riff and the guitar playing the same thing an octave higher, but when it's on one instrument being doubled, it sounds really in sync, really in unison in a way that you can't really get when you have two different players playing the same riff. It's just not going to be exactly the same, whereas here it sounds like it's being kind of doubled. What I'll do is I'll play a little guitar line here. And I'll put an octave on below it and hopefully you'll hear this kind of thickness that I'm talking about. So all I've done is turned on an effect. And you can hear it underneath it, instead of just being like a high note like here. You can hear a lower note as well, so I think that's what's going on with the bass, an octave pedal on top of the distortion. And there's some nice articulation going on, like a slide there, to make it just sound a bit kind of more unique, I suppose. Also, it's kind of a three-piece thing to do, is add these kind of slides and stuff in. I think something like Song 2 by Blur, the kind of second half of the chorus, where the bass line has this really hooky part with some slides in it. So slides basically sliding between notes, if you didn't get that there. that kind of thing, or like the bassist did in the warning here. And then other interesting thing in terms of the production, during the second half of that verse in particular, the bass moved more over to the left speaker, which is quite unusual for modern music. It tends to be more symmetrical in how loud each side is, but it means on the audio spectrum there's loads of space for the guitar to come in on the chorus on the right hand speaker, which is really cool. Yeah, that's hearing the bass and the guitar together, that's really heavy. It's a huge sound. And also the cool thing about this is more like what you get live. You tend to get the big PA speaker is going to send out whatever's on that side of the stage, and that one will send out that. So you get a bit more of a live experience when things are mixed like this as well. Okay. And just coming up here, I think they've intentionally clipped the master track, so they've made things distort a tiny bit here on over Burnout. Yeah, or it might just be the vocals. I'm hearing a bit of clipping there, and if you listen incredibly carefully, underneath that high vocal, it's doubled with a lower Burnout. So aside from the high one, there's a lower one as well. If you can listen closely, it's snuck in there in the mix, just to fatten the sound out. And there, the do-do-do-do-do is being doubled by like a vocal and perhaps a guitar an octave as well, an octave higher. So there's some really cool studio trickery going on here to give that kind of fat sound that you just get live because it's loud. A really interesting chord there, which I'm going to guess was a B major. I think. Let's find out. Yeah, cool. So what's interesting about that is you expect it to be minor, but it's been played as a major. And it leads very nicely to E, the key they played in. Again, a kind of music thing to do here. And then you can hear more kind of effects on the vocal there, which is cool. Right, that's cool. There's a really fuzzy tone on the guitar that I didn't pick up on in the live version there, that really kind of changes the context of that riff she's playing. It makes it feel less Britpoppy and grungy and a bit more contemporary, which is odd because Fuzz is kind of like one of the original Distortions. So typically things that are fuzzy sound a bit more retro. So I haven't really talked about the drums. They're good, tight in the pocket and holding on the fort, but there's really interesting tonal things about to happen here. So if you listen to the bass in particular, just coming up here on that bow bow. So it sounds like there is a distortion a different distortion being put on, because you get this more trebly spank and it's also been panned out to the left. So that means that the sound has been moved. So you're getting kind of more of a surround sound vibe when this happens. So I think there's two sounds going on. I think there's a fuzzy distortion, and then there's a fuzzy overdrive, and then there's another that's more of a kind of distortion type overdrive, so a bit harsher with some sort of octave effect going on as well. They're doing a really good job of like mixing together different kind of sonic palettes, because the guitars are kind of like a soft stoner rock. If you imagine like a Queens of the Stone Age, but less kind of in your face. And there's the vocals are quite kind of poppy in the way they're produced, but everything's just melding together really nicely. Very heavy in the mid-range, this mix, which is quite kind of makes it quite friendly and quite kind of pleasant to listen to. But it does mean things can be competing for the same kind of space, the same frequencies, but they've produced really well here, so that's not happening, at least to my ears. I suppose when the distortion comes on the vocals, one could argue they're getting slightly lost in the mix, but they're still clear enough that I don't think it's really an issue. So jumping ahead here to the kind of the bridge or pre-solo. So you just got this really spanky E being played by everyone. Lots of fuzz, lots of distortion on, so it sounds huge. The guitar and the bass both doing it. And the drums accenting those stabs as well. Boom, boom. Okay. Is it octaves? So I think that part is octaves with some sort of flanger over it, because it's doing this wobbly thing. And then right, cool. Yeah, cool. I'll just break down that solo with what effects I think are going on. Right, okay, so I think she might have played this slightly differently live. It sounds here like there is a pitch pedal that's making the note bounce between here and here. It's the same note an octave lower. So I think she's got a pedal on that's making that move up and down in pitch. And just going up. And then an octave higher. Into that harmonic minor note. So what I'll do is I do not have a drop pitch pedal that I can automate like that to hand, but what I do have is an octave pedal that I can kind of just stick on to show you that sound. And I'll put on a kind of flanger here as well to get that oscillation that we have at the start of the solo. Okay, so the one to look at here is this one that says flanger. I've put the rate up just to explain what that does. It makes it kind of sound faster. So just now we've got this sound. I turn it off. So what the rate does kind of sounds a bit faster. So if we have a slow rate, get a slight swoosh over it. And if we turn it up, I had it somewhere around here. So the way I would tackle the solo if I was to kind of appropriate it live would be to start on the 7th fret on the A string and the 9th fret on the G string. And just go from the G string down to that A string and do that. What would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. So for a bar. So then up, same shape as semitone. Sorry, same shape up a tone there, up a semitone next. And up another tone. So you've got this octave shape. These notes are the same, which is why it's called an octave. Starting on the 7th, up to the 9th, up to the 10th fret, and then up to the 12th. Then what you can do if you don't have a fancy pedal to put up an octave is we could move to here. So we're now on the 9th fret on the G and the 12th fret on the E, which is a slightly different shape from the one we used previously. And we'll just go up the same way though. So now move the shape up here, so we've got 11 and 14 on those strings. Up a semitone, so we've got 12 and 15. And then it was actually down here, wasn't it? So we then have a 8 and an 11. So if we put that together, now the fancy octave thing, where will I put it? I will move it to the end here. What you can do is you can double the note, right? So we take the note and copy it. What one do I want? Fixed harmony. I'm just going to put things off that I don't need on, put the mix so we can hear it slowly coming in. So we got this note, and as I put the effect in, I put the effect on and pretty much nothing else. So it's taking this note, this open E string, and it's making it sound like this one. Right, so you can dial a bit of it in, you can get both notes, and you can move anywhere and it'll do the same thing, just taking the same note that you're playing and making it sound higher. So if we have it on 100%, we can do this. Okay, so I'll do this in real time, turning the effect on for the second half of that. So we'd have... So as I say, I think the effect is being automated. So she's holding the note and it's kind of making this nice slidey, what would it be? Oh, can I do this properly? I don't think so. Yeah, so that's completely beyond me to do that manually, so I do think it's being done by a pedal, or she could just be pushing like a whammy pedal up and down to get the same sort of effect. Very cool way to make the solo a little bit kind of more contemporary. So first up we have the kind of flanger on it. And you get that wow, wow, as it going between the two notes, one an octave higher, one an octave lower. And then here, it sounds like it's been pitch shifted because there's a slight brittleness and shimmer to the note, and artificiality that I really like the sound of, that you tend not to get when you just play something up the octave. It tends to happen when you put an effect on. I could be totally mistaken here, so correct me in the comments if you know better. And then you hear that boom, that harmonic minor note, but really, it really wants to go back to here, which is where the song goes. We have another cool dynamic kind of shift here, just coming up. Right, so we've gone down to vocals and it sounds like a guitar, but it's on the side the bass was on, so yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a guitar, but they've panned it over to that side just to confuse me and used a kind of fuzzy kind of overdrive. Yeah, and then there's just a huge sound coming in, and they've done quite a clever thing of, I talked about panning earlier, which is how far to the side something is or isn't, right? You can use all the panning, so you can have something panned 100%, or you can pan it part of the way. So a cool thing to do in songs is to maybe have your first verse just, 30% either way of the center, and then your kind of final chorus, you really take up the full space, so you go full panned left and full panned right, and you get this really huge sound. It wouldn't surprise me if they'd done something like that, because there's a huge pop just at this kind of final bit of the song. Yeah, and when I was talking about a kind of synthetic contemporary sound on the guitar, where it sounds a bit like a synthesizer, this is a great example. So something like that. Maybe an octave lower. So it sounds much more synthy than if I turn all the effects off. And we have a standard guitar sound. And in terms of the production, there's also a really cool thing going on where parts of the solo, or kind of post-chorus, whatever we want to call it, it's being doubled in different ways. So if you have one headphone in and one headphone out, you'll kind of hear it on one side and not on the other, and like being played in different ways as well. It's very cool. So while it's relatively straightforward in terms of its structure and in terms of the riffs being played, there's a lot of love and attention to details being put into this production from my point of view anyway. I've done it in a clever way wherein it sounds much more polished, much more kind of sheen and sparkly or shiny than the live version I listened to. But the live version is still an accurate enough representation of the core of the song that they've not gone overboard in the studio and gone like mental by just adding layer upon layer and stuff that you can't achieve, as a stripped down 3-piece. But I suppose that is a slightly interesting thing. If you played this to me, garage rock would not have been one of the genres that popped into my head, whereas the live version, it was probably one of the first that was there. And then even the end saying, hey, there's this delay on it. Or maybe a reverb, you can kind of hear it echoing. Just lots of, it feels like a lot of love has gone into crafting that song. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear me do more on them. Personally, I'd be pretty up for it. But please do bear in mind that requests made through Patreon do get bumped to the top of the list. If you have the means and inclination to support the channel, that is the best way to do it. But cheers guys, hope you're having a good one.